meeting to order at 6:01. I will read my statement again. Individuals may address the board on agenda items both in closed session, which we don't have tonight, and regular session agenda during public participation and/or at the time they are under consideration by completing the form provided over on the table and submitting it to Anna. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order, and each person may only speak on once per agenda topic and is required to address the board for the podium to make sure everybody can hear. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board unless placed on an agenda at a subsequent meeting in accordance with the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing at a future time, and a total of 20 minutes per topic is allowed. Please remember that our meeting is broadcast, and please silence your phones. And this is a special meeting, so we can, once we approve the agenda, then we can have public participation on only agenda items this evening. So is there anything that needs to be pulled or moved on our agenda? Okay.
No. I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you. So is there any public participation on agenda items this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right in to our school plan for student achievement. Is there any introduction or anything, Becky? No?
There will be a prize for the shortest presentation
So here's what I will say. Are we on, Nate? Is this on? Excellent, thank you. So here's what I will say. Someone had approached me today and said, "Oh, you have a board meeting," and I said, "I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite board meetings because what happens in this board meeting is that the principals share what's going on in the schools. It shows that our site plans are live, breathing documents, that we don't just make this document and say, okay, off we go. And when we look at our LCAP is comprised of everything that's going to be talked about today. So it really unifies what we do. I am thrilled for this meeting because it gives us all a snapshot of what's happening in our schools and with our students. So I appreciate that the board has made this a priority for it to be its own special day. And thank you to our principals who are here.
Okay, sorry, now I've lost my drive. There we go. The drive went away. Google and I sometimes don't ever agree. Okay, so we're gonna start with Connie tonight.
Oh, we are?
That's the
With my site plan or my sub?
your mid-year review.
Are we doing
Right?
a presentation?
Okay, hold
Can I
on.
just comment that the slideshow was put together in a different order, and I didn't catch that it was in a different order.
Okay,
We can
So
go
then
backwards
let's-
up, or-
Could we start with Redwood?
Should we
Yep.
go in the order that it's
yes,
now?
in the
That's what I-
presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I was going down the,
Was my fault.
it's okay, minor
It's all
thing.
still part of 2.1.
And I'm not trying to add anything tonight, so we're good.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
Mrs. Erickson.
I'm Lundy Erickson. I'm the principal at Redwood Elementary. And for Goal 1, we have had guest speakers from the fire department come, and we've got career information that's taught throughout our benchmark curriculum, our ELA. We are in cooperation with district personnel to incorporate the AVID strategies at the elementary level. That's coming up more in the spring. Also in the spring at our open house, we are going to start an I Want to Be activity, which will be done annually, and it'll follow the kids from year to year so that they can develop their picture of themselves and who they want to be in the world. Our idea is that we could then pass that along to Mr. Kale at Dana Gray, and he can continue it or discontinue as he so chooses. Goal 2, closing the achievement gap. This is really what we've been working on the most this year. So we've been doing so much work with our instructional coaches. They've done a lot of professional development in all of the areas listed there. We're using the Illuminate reports to evaluate our student achievement. You guys saw a lot of that at the board meeting where we were making presentations on that. We are implementing SWIS to help us evaluate behavior data. We do have behavior data in the ARIES system right now, but it's not as easy as Swiss is. So we're really looking forward to being able to access that. Also, through our coaches, we've developed standards-based district benchmark assessments. We have made changes to our bell schedule so that our Redwood teachers have 2 full hours. We were working with an hour and 45, hour and a half previously, so this is allowing for more equity across the sites. And I'm doing weekly walkthroughs of all the classrooms and getting to see what's going on and giving feedback immediately to teachers, sometimes on a Post-it, sometimes in an email, following up in a conversation. So they're seeing my face a lot more. I'm happy to say that now when I go into classrooms, they don't panic anymore. They say, oh, Mrs. Erickson's here, that's great. So that's been a really nice change. And goal 3, improving school culture. We've had really good attendance at a variety of events. Back to school night, our site council, coffee with the principal, our ELAC meetings have been pretty well attended with the exception of the last one. We've got literacy night coming up in March. We've got lots of SSTs and IEP meetings where parents are coming. Our school counselor and health aide work really diligently to connect families with outside agencies as appropriate. We're really grateful for those outside supports, and we're very pleased to help make those connections. We have the counselor retreat, which is going to be held annually for planning and collaboration. We had, I believe it was the first one last summer, and we're planning to continue that. It's been really nice to have a general plan with which to work with my counselor, because we're both new at what we're doing, so having that as a guide has been a really lovely thing to refer to. And also this year, we've had very active participation of our PBIS and leadership teams working on implementing the PBIS strategies. I've been getting a lot of support from Dale Myers. We're going to be bringing in Stephen Hom to help us with Swiss, to help, again, with that behavior monitoring. But we're really excited about some of the positive changes that we've made to PBIS. Are there any questions that I can answer?
I have a question.
Yes,
can
please.
you say what SWIS stands for?
School-wide information system. Thanks.
So if you're wondering, if it sounds familiar to you, we had Swiss years ago when we started doing PBIS, and then Aries became a little bit more specific. And so when we had moved the whole district to Aries, because Redwood wasn't on, the teachers weren't using Aries at Redwood, Dana Gray's teachers weren't using Aries at Redwood. So when we moved to Aries, we had stopped using Swiss to try and do one student information system. And so after working with Dr. Dale Myers and doing our best to start laying the foundation for implementing PBIS with full fidelity, one thing became very clear was that we couldn't extrapolate from Aries the specific details that we needed to identify what the triggers of behavior are, what are the elements of where the hotspots are with behavior, what we need to look at. And so Mr. Kale and Ms. Erickson led a very enthusiastic plea of, can we do this? Can we try it? So we went ahead and purchased Swiss. It's minimal. It's like $400 a site. So we're not talking $12,000 or something astronomical to get it going. And then we also implemented it. We also are getting it going for the middle school. So that's where that's coming from. Because it was a small amount, we're going to be able to see very quickly, is it worth it or is it not worth it? So we'll have more to report on that at the end of the year, I believe, when the school plans come out, because they'll have some reports that they'll be able to lean on.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker.
So I have a question, because I believe the governor is going to be looking at our LCAPs, because they're frustrated with the form, still not knowing how funds are being spent. For instance, like the supplemental concentration funds is still, when you look at a site plan or school plan or an LCAP, you still don't know where that money is, because if it's not used in 1 year, then it can go into the general fund, and they just want to monitor that. So I don't know how, that might be more of a question for Wendy, but I don't know if that's more PD what we're using, or do you have an EL coordinator that you're working with at your site as well? Because I think middle school and Dana Gray mentioned it in their school plan, and I don't think that I saw it in your
We do have an
plan.
EL
So
coordinator
that
for the
would be,
site.
I would think, helping the students, that would be,
Okay. Let's address one thing at a time. Start with the supplemental concentration money, because this is a very sensitive topic for us, and I want everybody to know that we follow the letter of the law with our supplemental and concentration money. So please share what we talked about before.
Well, and then, well, that's sort of, I have always the LCFF happened, I think, my first full year here, and we were very, very careful to look at the uses and make sure that they were appropriate. I've also always identified anything that wasn't spent, and it's shown as assigned fund balance every single year. We always identify what's left over to use, and it never disappears.
And it doesn't go into the general fund, it stays in.
Well, it's part of the general fund, but
Right.
it never disappears into any other use. It's always identified and allocated.
But it'll be easy for our district then to, because
Absolutely.
if this ends up fruitating to what they would like, they want an Excel sheet, attached to an LCAP, maybe eventually, like, sort of discussing that with the state superintendent. They're, discussing all of that. Who knows if it, in 5 years, maybe that'll occur, but it'll be really easy for our district to show
So-
how the funds are being used to
When
help
it-
the neediest kids.
So when we all came on board, with the change in administration 3.5 years ago, that was one of the reasons why things were moved around. Because we wanted to ensure that our supplemental and concentration dollars were used to the letter of the law. We had some things in there that maybe should, like food services and some things that were in there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and they were things that we talked about and felt were justifiable at the time. But then looking at them more closely, we decided that they were probably more appropriate uses to direct towards those students.
And I'm not trying to implicate us, so, sorry, Wendy. I'm just trying to say that we have been doing a much better job of identifying how our supplemental and concentration dollars are targeted and focused on our unduplicated count.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, EL coordinator, let's go back to that. So every site has an EL coordinator. When Joanne's position was absorbed, we made sure that every site had someone on campus to work with our EL students specifically, monitor the reclassification process, and make sure that if extra supports were needed, that person would be able to work with the staff to help provide extra supports, in whatever form that might be. It might be consult, it might be push-in, however that is. So at Redwood, we have, I'm allowed to say names, aren't I?
Well, we have a coordinator.
Yes, Redwood has a coordinator, Dana Gray has a coordinator, middle school has a coordinator, and the high school has a coordinator. So, and then the high school coordinator also takes care of Alt-Ed.
I just want to make sure that, I know not everything is in the site plan or the LCAP, but that's probably an important piece to have in the
So
school plan.
moving forward, when the school plans are presented to you in May, we need to make sure that everything that's listed in supplemental and concentration, that they're completely identified in our school plans. So,
Thank you.
EL coordinators will be in our school plans. You will see that. It's in our LCAP.
So, hi, I'm Rick Kale. I'm principal at Dana Gray Elementary School. Well, let's do this. Here we go, and then we'll talk about why I get ribbed all the time by my crew.
It's
But
gonna be fun.
it is very fun because we work so well collaboratively, and we have fun about anyway these reports. Just because my reports tend to be broad in scope, and anyway, and there's always something that's sort of extra, and I do have something extra again today. Anyway, in goal number 1 is college and career interest and awareness. We are using a new folder planner version, like a smaller version, and it's working incredibly well. Another activity that we're doing that is in the plan is that the career path or the life choice game. Our school counselor is working with 3rd and 4th grade classes to do that. And the school counselor is working with 5th grade classes to have individual meetings related to, it's a thing that she's working on called Career Choices, which is really interesting. There are also career-based lessons that are happening in the classes, individually by the teachers and also supported by the school counselor. Here's the big thing that's really exciting to me. The Mendocino College field trip, the first time we did it was last year. And the way we did it was the ELAC group, the ELAC Parents Committee, raised the money to support the kids to go. And it ended up such a wonderful thing because it was this nice for the fifth graders, a nice linear thing to the Adopt a Fifth Grader event at the end of the school year. Like, it made sense to them at the end that they were getting a scholarship to go to a place that they knew, they saw it. And Mendocino College Foundation got that message too. And so this year they're paying for the buses, they're paying for the food, and they're paying for the t-shirts for the kids, the colleges, for our kids to go and visit their college. And that trip is all set up, and it's exciting. It is really, really exciting. The Adopt a Fifth Grader program is still continuing as well. You know, Dana Gray had the most with help of Rotary and amazing community organization groups here in Fort Bragg. We had the most students of any school in the county for the Adopt Fifth Grader, by far, by dozens. And thank you. It was really cool. And anyway, career day, thank you. There's no applause.
Well, and seriously, Mr. Kelly, I just want to pause and just do a shout out to our Rotarians, because what Rotary does is Rotary says it's a $700 donation to adopt a fifth grader. It's $700. And then what happens is Rotary says, well, if you give $500, our Rotary group will pitch in the other $200. And then how it works is that if that fifth grader graduates from high school and goes to Mendo College, they are guaranteed a $1,000 scholarship to go to Mendo College. If that kiddo graduates from Fort Bragg High School or graduates from high school but doesn't go to Mendo College but says go to Harvard, they get a $500 scholarship. So that's why the 700 can turn into 1,000, and from 5th grade to 12th grade, 7 years, they invest it, and it keeps going. So thank you to every Rotarian out there. I'm sure there's tons of people watching this right now. But seriously,
it's a big deal, though.
Rotary's
It's a really big deal for the
deal,
kids.
and they do a great job. So
Career Day as well is in our plan, and it's going to happen the end of May. It's already been planned. So the Close the Achievement Gap is the real, and my glasses don't let me see that, so I'm going to work with this. The Close the Achievement Gap about student achievement is the real work that we're doing. We are delivering ELD instruction daily by the homeroom teachers in small groups. We've developed systems to monitor that and to watch it. We know that it's happening. We have reworked our walk to learn time, and we have aid support time focused on small tiered small group reading instruction, which is fantastic. We have the TOSAs, which are creating at both Redwood and Dana Gray, are creating these amazing coaching cycles. Today we had a wonderful professional development, all driven by our TOSA for the teaching staff related to guided reading. So I mean, this is like really incredible change. The TOSAs are making an amazing difference. We are having, we have some plans for second and third and fifth and sixth grades to collaborate cross-site. Here's something that sort of last three bullet points at the bottom. We're now using for our local benchmarks, we are using CASP interim assessments for our local benchmarks. But the most exciting thing about our local benchmarks is that we're using Illuminate Home Connection, which is really, I had a great conversation, and Ms. Walker was there too. We just did our ELA and math second benchmarks for in fourth grade. And the teacher that we were talking with, she was already analyzing the data during the test. Like during the test, she was looking at their responses. She could see their responses. She knew at the end of the test what kids got it and what kids didn't, and she was already planning how to handle that, how to have intervention, tier 1 intervention in her classroom. And that's exciting. Like, that's really exciting. That is the core of growth for all of our areas, is being able to immediately know, how well do kids do? You know, did what I thought I taught them, did it actually work? And that's what's really important.
what was, and I'm going to piggyback because I have to share this because I think it's funny. The teacher was talking to us about it, and she was incredibly excited. And she said, I could even see so-and-so just hitting the buttons because he was done so quickly, so I could go back and say, now, are you sure you're really done? So I thought it was great. So she had that data live. She saw it happening. She was able to go, walk around and know who to monitor in her classroom. It was fantastic. So she was incredibly excited.
It is.
One small step for mankind.
It's a big deal. It's really, really a big deal. So we're very excited about that. Last one is school culture, and we're developing things here. School culture at Dana Gray, I think, is wonderful. And why I say developing, the first bullet point is one that is, we're continuing discussions related to family information nights. We haven't got one off the ground yet, but we have the committee. So, and let me go backwards. We have the committee, we're working on it, it is developing. Pod Squad is a major point of excitement for us. We have modeled off the Link crew and the web crew. We have 5th grade mentors to 3rd graders. They are going into the classes and mentoring 3rd graders, which is incredibly cute and wonderful. If you go to Dana Gray, I hope you see me out in front welcoming students as they come in, but you'll see groups of students. Their job has morphed through the year, so now they're just kind of welcome, like they're the good morning kids. The goal is to say good morning to everybody that comes in, and I tell them, just grab people and just say good morning, and see what happens, and that's school culture development. The site awards committee, we are looking at our awards assembly process, and we're getting lots of feedback from parents and from staff that we want to make it more incentive driven, we want to make it more relevant and more connected to the students, so we're working on that. And we've had multiple meetings at the staff and committee level related to that. Our school counselor continues to implement PBIS, and we are, as well as Redwood, are working with Dr. Dale to implement our Swiss tracking system. We actually have it live now as of like 2 or 3 days ago, and we are putting in data into the Swiss system, which is really exciting because it eliminates a huge number of steps where you'd have to fill out a form, and the form would go to the secretary, then the secretary would enter it. It's now paperless entry, so you enter it on your phone. So, and it is all about data tracking, just very quickly. It's not supposed to be laborious and expensive. We're continuing the SART Attendance Review Committee, and this is something that is pretty quiet, but I think you'll see in the numbers related to attendance that it's making a big difference. We're reaching out to parents a lot about how can we support you and getting to school and being to school on time and ready. And the whole SART process that we have at Dana Gray, I'm really proud of. I think it's working really well. The counselor has very specific attendance awards, and we're working on the end of the year big awards that are in here and up there that are going to be, I don't know, maybe you want to give away a bike for attendance. I don't know. I can't. If you're at home watching the reruns of this, just be careful. And we continue with non-exclusionary consequences. Rule school, buddy classroom, check-in, check-out, timeout reflections, restorative practices, restorative conferences, all of those things are incredibly important, and we continue to use them and refine those systems. And that's what we say in here, that we will continue to refine them. So we're doing very well. So, you may have heard that I sometimes get ribbed because, like a little beaten up because my presentations go a little long. And I do apologize for that. And there's even been mention that I should create like a pop-up book or some kind of like really amazing thing. But I love this stuff that I've given you before. It's like it's office supplies from 1982, and I get to like make things out of them and do something new and exciting and really cool. Well, I was in my office explaining this to my staff, right? That, as principals, we work really well together, and we have fun together, and we enjoy. I can tell you guys, just from my point of view, I really enjoy my job. Like, I really like it, and I like working with you guys. And it, and every time I come up, well, guys, let's try this. They're like, okay, yeah, let's try that. So the 3rd grade group was standing there listening to me give this story, and one of the teachers, who shall remain nameless, said, "You know what, Mr. Kale, I'm sort of the same way. I have this really special skill. People make fun of me for it, right? And it's really cool, and it's something that I love, and it's just something that I do." And I'm like, cool, you got to ask, like, well, what is it? Like, what it is? What is it? And she said, I make stuff. And I'm like, what kind of stuff? Like, what kind of stuff do you make? And I'm like, could you make like a dolphin? And I'm thinking like a dolphin. Can you just make one? And the next day, on my desk, appeared this. And I'm like, whoa, how cool is that? And the teachers came in and they said, everything's a little better if you put a dolphin on it, Like you just put a dolphin on it, things are better. I said, how cool is that? Well, it has since developed in kind of a running joke that I want to share. And it's a little bit of a pun, but we are literally swimming in dolphins.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Or crocheted.
Oh, crocheted?
I think it's crocheted. This is amazing.
Oh my
You could almost be
God.
dolphins. Those are amazing.
But I really,
Shark.
No, look at the nose. That's pretty cool.
I just, welcome to the pod, my friends. Every time I turn around, there's a dolphin somewhere, and everything is better if you put a dolphin on it.
Mrs. Vieira will be participating in an interpretive dance. Is that it?
No, our synchronized swim team was going to be here tonight, and then we were passing out puppies and lattes. I will say, though, as a former 5th grade teacher, dolphin used to be one of the spelling words in our old curriculum. And one of my sentences, Mr. Kale, when we were doing our spelling test was, a dolphin makes a delicious sandwich. It's illegal.
It was the old tuna
No, when I
can.
was teaching, and when you do the spelling, your pre-spelling test and then your post-spelling test, and then, okay, never
There's
mind.
actually a fish dolphin that is quite tasty.
Oh, we're gonna
I
have to
just see
look
the
into
letters
that.
To the editor now. I'm cringing. Okay, this was all in jest. To the people in the audience, these are lovely crochet dolphins. They're fabulous.
No, they're incredible. I mean, well done. And to the 3rd grade teacher that I know who did all of that, because she's a remarkable artisan. I've seen other things she's made incredible. That really was lovely. And now we're going to talk about the middle school, Laura Vieira, Fort Bragg Middle School principal. I don't have dolphins or timber cups.
Hold on, just a second.
Oh, did you?
I don't know what it is
I
either.
just took you guys at your word.
Did not know.
Well, now
No.
I see it up.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
think that's it.
Okay, so I'm sure maybe you can answer the question for Dana Gray. ORR collaboration?
Oh,
Oral
oral
reading
reading
record.
record.
Oh,
Here, let's go back.
Okay, gotcha. Oral reading record. Okay.
It's where you measure fluency, reading speed, like the ability,
Oh, gotcha.
the ability to, the student's development in reading, and it's measured. It's a great question. It is, part of this thing is helping parents understand like what are the metrics that we use to determine is your student reading on grade level or are they not, right? So there's a very specific. It's Fontes and Pinnell researchers that developed this scale from A to Z of reading ability. A being, actually AA is pre-reading, right? And then Z is
We've seen
high
the
school.
chart.
Yeah, you've seen the
Gotcha.
chart
We just
before.
didn't know the code.
But,
Yes.
but
Oral
what-
reading record.
Recall.
But what's important for us is if you have a measurement like that everyone has to measure in the same way. Like, and if you don't spend time calibrating how you're measuring reading speed, how you're measuring mistakes in reading, if they repeat a word, if they go back, if they, the classic when I read, you go to the same sentence over and over again, right? How do you measure that? How do you score it so that the measurement is accurate?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Good question.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Fort Bragg Middle School, Laura Vieira, principal. So, goal 1, increase student college and career readiness. We start having A to G requirements at Fort Bragg Middle School. Also, the CTE culinary course. It's a cornerstone, which then can feed into the high school program. Currently, we just only have culinary, but we are working on developing some others to follow that CTE pathway. The A to G requirements that are available in 8th grade, in Spanish and algebra, it actually can transfer to the high school. It doesn't count as A to G at the middle school, but once they transfer those transcripts to the high school, then it counts on their high school transcript. We also have AVID strategies embedded in our classes across the entire school. And then the 10-year plans in our site plan said that the counselor was going to be working on that. We do have a brand new counselor, and just to let you know, we have not gotten to that yet.
What other CTE courses are you considering?
We're looking at art, and we're looking at art. I'll leave it at that for now. There are others that I am having conversations about. We're just not at a point yet where I would want to share that. But definitely art, we've been talking about it for a while. And I think we're getting really close to being able to offer that.
Great.
I agree. Our second goal is to close the achievement gap. We have done that with our EL site coordinator. We have a teacher induction program and mentor teachers that help support our new staff members and our intern teachers. We have a bilingual aide that helps our newcomers and our English learners as they're familiarizing themselves with English. We have student engagement strategies, which we have been working on for almost 2 years now. Today I'm going to jump down to the bottom, a regional model visit looking at those student engagement strategies with our consultant, Kelly Smith, who's been working with us for quite a while. And the level of student engagement that the visiting team saw today, they left inspired and motivated to work on improving the strategies they have on their campus. All of our kids that are designated English language developing learners have daily instruction in their classes. It's one of the electives. Our redesignated students, so REFEP is,
Redesignated fluent English proficient.
Thank you. We monitor them for 4 years to be sure that they aren't sliding and that they have all the supports that they need. And then we have support classes for both math and English language arts, where those support classes are taught by the core teacher. And then the regional model visits, this is the 3rd or 4th one that we've had, where we've had visiting teams of educators come to do walkthroughs on our campus and look for those student engagement strategies. And I have to say, I think today was one of the best ones that we've had. They were complimentary about our campus, about our student relationships, student to student, student to teacher, teacher to student. It was really a remarkable day. I would invite you to come in. Well, actually, most of you have. And those of you that haven't, you are welcome at any time. Goal 3 is to improve school culture, which I think we are doing a great job of that. We have Web, where everybody belongs. It's similar to Link Crew and Pod Squad at the high school and at Dana Gray. It's through the Boomerang Project. That's where we have 8th grade students that are mentors to our 6th graders. And so they do activities throughout the year to help those 6th graders with their transitions. We are working on PBIS, which has been in place at the middle school for quite a while, but I think the tenets of it kind of got lost along the way. And so we also are working with Dr. Dale Myers and Steve Hom, and we are reinvigorating that. We have a PBIS team on our campus that is comprised of teachers and staff members. They have so we've started again with our PAWs, which are like the Caught You Being Good tickets that Dana Gray and Redwood passed out. Do you guys still call them that? Okay, yeah. And so we are doing that, where there are prizes, and we've got a high level of interest and buy-in from both staff and students. It has made a marked difference on our campus. We started when we came back from winter break with focusing on recognizing the positive behavior, and both Mr. Chimolino and I have been saying to one another when we're out supervising lunch and at break, you can feel a difference in the climate on our campus. We have homeroom, which is focused on social emotional learning. We're embedding that within that time that we have in our modified block schedule, supporting our students of trauma and just building that stronger connection with our students and with our staff. And then we have our leadership class, which we have one in 8th grade and one in 6th grade. Tomorrow, actually, we have a student-produced and run assembly where we have gotten to the point where adults aren't really going to do anything, although there is a surprise for students at the end tomorrow. I'll leave it at that. And they also are running all of the site-wide activities during lunch that, the first day back from vacation, we had musical chairs in the quad. So it's just really sweet to see kids playing and laughing and interacting appropriately with one another. Questions?
Did you say your tickets were, it was the pause program?
We're calling
Like
them
a
paws.
like
Well,
a-
because
like
we
a
are the
cub?
Timber
Like a
Cubs,
cub
and
paw?
the actual little ticket has a paw print on
I've
it.
seen them in my car.
Yes, well. So there's so there's drawings every Friday. We are also developing Respect Fest, where you can save up your tickets and get into a special event during lunch, which we haven't had our first one. It's coming up soon. So there are lots of really great things happening on campus. Okay.
What sort of special event?
It's called the Respect Fest. It's going to be in the quad. So you'll have, I think they said 25 tickets that you can save them up, and then that's how you can enter. And I don't think all the activities have been finalized yet. Okay.
And do you know off the top of your head, Laura, what the assembly, or is it in the bulletin? What time the assembly is?
Our new there's a bell schedule. It's at the end of the day tomorrow. So adult parents are welcome to come. Please sign in the office as a visitor and wear a visitor badge.
I want to say it's like 150. Does that sound right?
I think so. I don't have tomorrow in my head yet. I'm still working on today, but it's pretty much the last period of the day.
Okay.
And then 150 sounds about right. And you can call school. Actually, I'm sure it's on our website right now
Okay, thank you.
because it will be in tomorrow's bulletin, which is already
Kids
posted.
at 5th period, but you said the bell schedule's different tomorrow?
It is, because we
Okay.
take a couple minutes from every
Okay.
period to then be able to congregate for the assembly.
And I have on my calendar that it starts from it's at 1:51 to 2:41.
Okay, yes,
Perfect.
that is exactly it.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Bruce Triplett, Fort Bragg High School principal. All right, our first one, increase student college and career readiness. We have a strong dual enrollment classes at the campus. We've had that for quite a few years. This year, we've been working with Mendocino College, last year rather, trying to get a CCAP agreement, which is the College and Career Access Pathway. And with that, we can kind of close off so the adults don't come, because I think that's some of the issues that, you don't know who's going to attend. I mean, it's on their, their catalog, so everybody who signs up can be in there. So with the CCAP agreement, I think it's going to open up some more pathways, as well as you're not stuck to the time constraints. So you can stretch a class that, Mendocino College says has to be in a semester. You can stretch it over a year. So we've been working with them, and we finally got that passed. So I think it's going to open up some other areas, such as culinary, because you can't really cook certain things. You're limited on what you can do in a certain time frame. So I think it's going to be it's going to open up some doors there. Credit recovery, we've limited the students that have to, I should say, transfer because they're credit deficient with our credit recovery classes, and I think this is the most we've had in the history of the high school. It's been a lot. So we have 3 teachers right now teaching separate periods, well, 2 with our independent study, so we have 3 different sections. So that's helping. Advisory, we're continuing to expand our advisory. We've had workshops, monthly themes, and we have class competitions. And of course, Avid and Upward Bound, we're working to prepare students for college. And we do have a career fair coming up next month. So I'm sure you'll hear about that soon. Close the achievement gap. Like it's been said, we have an EL coordinator at the high school working with staff. Elevation software, what's in place so that it shows the EL, the reclassification and how we're monitoring them. Numerous classes that are helping our underperforming students, such as Anchor Academy, our support classes, our essential classes, Avid and Upper Bound, and our CTE classes. Chromebooks, so I talked to Carol Nolte, and she said this year is the most checkouts that we've had so far. I think so the word's getting out there that there's Chromebooks that kids can check out, so that's encouraging. And it's also encouraging that our teachers are changing their benchmarks. We've also worked with our CAFs, interim assessments, or math is working on them. English changed a little bit this year. They went to their, multiple choice instead of the essay, which was taking too long to grade. So they're continuing looking at it and seeing how well students are doing, which is good. And finally, our school culture. We meet at least once a week with the counselors. We monitor, the students, their attendance and things like that. Saturday school, I just talked to Patty the other day and got the numbers. So far, 268 students have attended Saturday school since the beginning of the year, which means, dollar signs for Wendy there, 142 full days that we've recouped from student attendance, and 17 partial. And the difference is some of the kids didn't have many full days they'd miss. So that's why there's a difference between the 260 students attending and, the 142, because some of the kids didn't miss a day. So they're going there to make up maybe an assignment, or mostly that's what it is. It's we do use it for discipline, but for some kids, if they miss English assignment or a math assignment, they have to make it up in Saturday school in order to get the credit for it, which is good. We have a teacher there to help them. In-house suspensions, we've had in lieu of home suspensions, which are keeping kids on campus. Just yesterday, we did my first little restorative circle, this year, and it was good to see. Two kids, had a little altercation, and they discussed it with one another, and in the end, shook hands, and out the room they went. So it was good to see. So it takes time, but it does have benefits, and kids are staying on campus, which is good, so they're not missing the curriculum. Lunchtime, we have Mr. Bell and Mr. Anderson are doing lunchtime activities. I think right now it's soccer, and they just finished with volleyball, which is always a fun one. So it's good. Kids are at lunchtime in the gym, having fun, which is great to see. We've had more student award ceremonies. We have one coming up Monday, which is our kickoff to our spring hoopla week, we call it. It's a kickoff to our spring sports, so that'll be fun. We had our student of the months. We've had them in the gym, which is where we're trying to work on. Sometimes I don't think kids like to be called out in front of everybody, but it's good to see. So we've talked about our CAS scores at the meeting as well, so it's good. So kids like to play activities and compete against the teachers sometimes, so it's fun. Link Crew, we've had that for quite a while, and we are constantly having activities every week in classes, so that's good. And it's helping kids grow or promote conversations with one another, which is always good to see them get off their phones. And one of the things that it reminded me, I think Mr. Kale was talking about the things that they try to change. I had a teacher text me when they were at a tournament, and they said, "Oh, check out this." They took a picture of kind of some awards that students they saw other schools have. So I think we're going to change something that we have on our campus, and it's just nice to you go to other schools and visit other places, and you see different things they do, and it just reminds you that hey, that's something we could do as well. So we're constantly looking at how we can reward students. High school is a little different, giving them a pencil or something. Sometimes they're like, okay, thank you, but they want something else. So we're looking at different reward systems for them as well, so which will be good. And we've had PD with active student engagement. I think is going well in our classrooms. We've had Kelly Smith there at the high school too, and our PLCs, we're improving them, and of course the MTSS too. So do you have any questions for me?
Is Saturday school something that the students sign up, or is it off when I know you at site council, you talked about an F list that you produce and then you contact those kids?
Well, no, we look at their attendance. At that attendance too. So if they're close, we tell them, hey, that's a way to make up an absence. So some kids go for that. But some of them, it's consequencing for either missing an assignment in class, but we are looking at the possibility of something else. Like, maybe, I know some of our teachers, they prepare kids for the AP test, so we're looking at other ways how we can compensate the teacher and help the kids with something else. So I think Megan Tunzi, our ag teacher, I think she had an ag cleanup day in the farm, and I think she had a good 20 people, and it was in the rain too, and they cleaned up the area. So there's other besides just consequences for either a discipline or something like that. Okay, thank you. Connie, you're up.
Click right.
The first question is, did you get my delivery the other day?
Yes. Oh God, thank you. I forgot to tell you.
I
Thank
just-
you.
I had to get somewhere else, and so I just left it outside.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Now, yes, mine looks different, as you may notice, because I kind of was inspired by Mr. Kale and how he, makes it all. So I decided, and I had to be different, and
If you had a dolphin on it,
it would, but the lettering wouldn't look good, so I didn't put the dolphin on it, sorry. I was trying to go for a wave because we're breakers, but anyway. So mine looks a little different also because I put our school goal on here because, of course, I misread the memo that Lundy had sent out about tagging on to theirs. So anyway, the first goal is college and career readiness, and our school goal was to increase attendance by 3% annually. So we start off with hoping they can get 70% attendance, and so it has increased. Noyos and Lighthouse has increased from last year. Shelter Cove's not on here because there's only 4 students so far this year, and it's not really a good comparison. But, we've got more kids coming, I think partly because we've got more kids in Noyo, and so it's a shorter day, and everybody starts at 8:45, and that's made somewhat of a difference. I can't say it's perfect. We are also doing elements of Get Focused, Stay Focused in our Wednesday cohorts. The teachers have a group of a group of kids that they meet with all Wednesday morning. And we're using part of that because we're transitioning to big picture learning, and a lot of that is career focused. So that's been really great. And for us, having 2 kids enrolled in college classes is amazing. Because one young lady was really afraid to go, and she went. She said she's never going back, and she did all her homework and went back. Going to go back. So that's cool for us. Number 2 is closing achievement gap. Our goal was to try to get kids to earn 15 credits each quarter. And, this year, the first 2 quarters were short, so we wanted kids to get 12. And 32 kids earned 12 or more credits. Now, I think it would have been higher, but we missed a week of school because of the power outage. And so our kids aren't one to, crank out work at home. But 32 kids to get 12 or more is amazing for our kids. The teachers meet with the kids every week and discuss credits and attendance so the kids know where they're at, they know what their attendance is. And now we have an extended day program for Noyo students. So if they haven't earned the, basic amount of credits they're supposed to, they have to stay all day until 3:15 to make up their credits. And actually this quarter the kids who are supposed to stay have been staying, which is a miracle in itself, I have to say. Okay, improving school culture. We'd like to decrease the number of suspensions and referrals by 3%. We use restorative practices a lot to help our rate, and it's helped decrease it in Lighthouse and stabilize it in Shelter Cove. I have a back room in my office that we had for a lot of in-house suspensions, and it's hardly ever used anymore because the kids are restoring harm and with the teachers and with each other. So it's working really well.
And you meant repairing harm and restoring trust.
Oh, sorry. Did I say it backwards?
Clarify that.
Repairing harm, yes. We still do circles every week, and that's a all-school thing that we do. every Wednesday, and it fosters a sense of community. The kids pick the topic sometimes, the adults sometimes, and the kids all know that that's what happens on Wednesdays. Our counselor has informal groups every week on a variety of topics, and myself and the counselor do social emotional learning every Wednesday afternoon. Our teachers now get collaboration time every Wednesday, and so we take the kids, and it's a great time to have them for a chunk of time and do social emotional learning. And are there any questions?
I have a question. Well, you mentioned 32 kids met the 12 credit mark, and how many total do you have at your school now?
Well, of those, there were like 48, because that's Noyo and Lighthouse and not
32
Chilton.
out of 48.
Yeah,
That's good.
Good.
thank you. Yeah, I was happy.
That's great.
Anything else?
Do most students drive themselves to school at Alt Ed, or are they bused in? I'm just wondering, once they
Most-
get there, it seems like they stay, but getting students there, just curious on their mode.
They walk, they get a ride, they sometimes take the bus and it drops them off on Dana Street at the easement road. So it's a variety. 8:45 has been better for getting kids to school, for our kids
Right.
especially. So, anything else? I like my pictures, I have to say. I was impressed with myself that I could do it.
Very calm. Thank you.
Beautiful.
All right, Mary, do you want to stand for a minute? Okay. All right, so anything from the public on the school plans? Okay, so we'll move on to the budget with Wendy.
So the budget was recently released, and everybody is still scrambling to kind of try to figure out what it means. I brought you this little pocket version of the governor's budget to take a look at and read at your leisure.
Wendy, can you pull the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're all,
Struggling.
yeah.
Yeah. We don't have the tools that we use in place to actually calculate what it means yet to us. I'm going to a workshop tomorrow to get a little more information. We also have no idea if this is going to end up being the plan, but it's the information we have at the moment. Some of the takeaways that were readily apparent, they talk about how many more dollars, and they keep throwing around the B word, this many billions of dollars. The reality of what we're looking at in this January presentation was a COLA-only increase in our ongoing revenues of 2.26%, where last year we had planned on 3%. So the increase in our ongoing revenues is going to be less than we had anticipated. There's a lot of mention in there about increasing the special education base funding, which is a lovely idea also, but our SELPA is the second highest funded SELPA in the state. So we will see nothing extra. Luckily, they're going to hold us harmless, so they're not going to take any money away from us. They're going to try to bring the other districts who are not funded as well, or other counties, SELPAs that are not funded as well, closer to the ones that are funded well. We did
May I make a comment about SELPA
Yes.
really quickly? So this has come up in our superintendent discussion of why our county has such a large SELPA allotment, and part of that is because of our geographic expanse. So when you have a school in Whale Gulch in our county, and you also have another school in Anderson Valley, we aren't like the typical SELPAs that can hire a school psychologist or a speech therapist that can be shared in the county. You can't really expect someone to travel from Whale Gulch down to Anderson Valley and be whole. That right there, I think, is like a 5-hour drive. So understand that we've discussed this as superintendents. Why is Mendocino County have such a large SELPA allotment, a per pupil allotment? And part of that is because we are so far away. We aren't sharing services because we simply can't. We try and share a few things that we can, but it's not like we are in Sacramento or San Francisco Unified where everybody is really within, even if it's an hour away, it's still incredibly better. So I just want to put that out there so that people understand that.
And the higher funded SELPAs generally are rural, remote places, so. The special ed preschool dollars that we received this year, we are going to receive some of that again the proposal is to receive some of that again next year, but it's going to be more targeted and with more strings attached. This year, we were allowed to use it for more flexible things like offsetting our special ed contribution but they're going to expect, just like with the supplemental concentration dollars, that better or more services are going to be offered using those dollars. That's the proposal right now. A lot of the increase in the spending that they're showing for next year in this proposal are one-time dollars. They are planning to put some money towards teacher development and recruitment, and a couple of other areas that do need to be dealt with, but there are also some people kind of pushing back saying this is fine, but we really need to get our core strengthened enough to do our core mission before we kind of branch out to some of these other things. Yes, they're all needs, but let's get this house in order. It's like, if you're having trouble making your mortgage payments and somebody says, well, I'm going to give you an extra $1,000 a month, but you can only use it to trim your trees. It's a nice gesture, but it's not helping us shore up, the areas that really need a lot of the attention. And there's been more and more movement towards these sort of categorical things that have strings attached rather than the local control funding formula that we were all supposed to have. So that local control is kind of being peeled back a little bit, as is evidenced by the supplemental concentration discussion. There are a lot of, especially in larger districts, where parents are not happy that they have no idea what's going on. I think we do a pretty good job letting people know what we're doing with those dollars, but there are a lot of people in the state who don't feel like that's the case. So I am going to that workshop tomorrow on February 6th. When's that meeting? Next meeting? Anyway, there's a budget meeting coming up. I'll have a lot better information. I hope to have the calculator so that I can plug our demographic information into there and see what impact this really has. And I'm hoping to get some kind of a sense of, do they really think this is going to go through? A lot of times at these workshops, they have people in Sacramento and they can get a sense of, yeah, we think this is a pretty good probability, or hold on and wait for May. So that's where we are with that. So, I mean, one bright spot is because of our CEP and the data we collected during registration, we have an increase in our unduplicated counts. So we may see some extra dollars from there, only in the supplemental concentration area. So again, it's an area where we have to look very hard at exactly what we're doing if we do see that increase.
So that's the lunch program for the people.
Community
at home.
CEP, eligibility.
Community eligibility program, right. So that allows all of our children to eat free every day. And I shared with Becky sort of a question thing that you can use when you're deciding to allocate your supplemental concentration dollars that goes through. Well, is it this? Then, yeah, it might qualify. Is it this? No, So it's a good little guide for us to use when we're doing that, and we will use that tool as we develop the LCAP for the next 3 years.
So I know the governor was verbose in his initial reporting. Normally it's 30 minutes. Other past governors, and he was, I think I heard 3. So with all of that, did you hear that there would be possibly a per student ADA increase? Because I thought I read something,
Well,
each
that
day, is
in-
that counting in?
Yeah, that's the, so the statewide ADA is going down, and therefore most districts are going down a little bit, and that does impact the funding. The increase in the per ADA is that 2.26% COLA.
Okay, okay.
So,
So-
and
so
they,
I
and
thought
the
that was
base
separate.
grant for the special education funding for districts that are below a certain level is going up, and that's a per ADA
Because
amount.
this article is kind of misleading.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions for Wendy? Exciting stuff. Things to come. Okay, all right. So Becky, the LCAP development goals for our next cycle.
So when we look at the LCAP over the next term, I'm going to go to the superintendent symposium next week, so I'll have more on the template. But when we look at the LCAP goals for the next term, one of the things that we need to ask as a community is, are the goals that we have still pertinent? Are we moving towards those goals? Have we reached those goals? Have we achieved those goals? Do we need to change the goals? When you hear what's happening from our principals in the mid-year reports, we still have lots of work to do towards meeting and striving to reach these goals. Our goals are written in a way that you don't really know, did you meet it, did you not? Because we use words like increase, we use words like improve. So I think we are meeting our goals with our school plans and our LCAP. I do believe there's more work to do. In this next 3-year cycle, one of the things that we've discussed in our administrative council meetings is the wording on one goal in particular. So the closing the achievement gap, I've had parents ask me, so are you making the top group stop so that everybody else can catch up? And I said, no, we want all students to achieve. So one of the things that we've discussed in our administrative council meetings is, because the 3-year cycle's coming up, let's look at rewording that goal. Not necessarily changing the actions in the goal, but rewording it so that our families and our community knows what the actual target is. And so what we've discussed is close the achievement gap to increase student academic success. So if you are a student who is, you feel like you are the valedictorian top of your game, we still want you to increase your academic success. If you are a student who is struggling, we want you to increase your academic success. So it's really looking at all students moving forward, which is what the state wants us to do on our CASP. That's why there's that mean scale score. What did the whole group do to move forward? So it's not moving kids from one band to the next band. It's about all kids moving forward. And that's why you saw those differences in our CASP scores this year. Even though more students at the high school last year scored exceeding standards or meeting standards in math, more kids did that last year. There was greater growth this year, there was greater growth in last year's juniors as compared to the previous year's juniors because more students moved. So they had a larger gain, even though fewer students scored in the meeting standards or exceeding standards. Does that make sense? So that's why one of the reasons we need to have that discussion, because it's the development of our goals. We don't want to come in and just say, well, we're changing a goal. We need to have that discussion. Is this something that you support? Do you understand why we're bringing it to you? We can, when we go out and start talking to the site councils and our parents clubs and we talk about our LCAP and what parents see as the needs, we need to be able to explain our goals with a little bit more specificity. So the increased college and career awareness, especially because our dashboard just came out the way it did, that really needs to be addressed in our LCAP. So keeping that as a goal makes total and perfect sense. The improved school culture, we are in MTSS bound. That really has to stay there. Those two goals incorporate or encompass big umbrellas.
Multi-tiered.
Multi-tiered system of support. We are recipients of the pilot program right now, so Dana Gray and middle school will be watched very closely for the next 2 years, this year being year 1, next year being year 2. We are moving Redwood High School and Alt Ed along in that process, but they move differently because they are different houses. So we are moving as a district, though, in that direction. So the only goal that I would suggest to you and our community that we adjust is the increased student academic success so that we are targeted on that academic success, but we also still keep a close eye on our subgroups.
Any concerns or questions?
Can you just briefly explain what the process is in developing these goals over the next 6 months, 3 months?
So over the next 6 months, they have to be done. When we come together in June, I need to be able to give you the LCAP and say, here it is. We hold a public hearing. Anyone can speak at the public hearing. That's a time that we have robust public input. We typically haven't had any, but I am always hopeful that there will be a year where we will have robust public input.
This is it.
It could happen. Look at the Dolphins. So then the following week, you do a vote. Prior to that, between now and May, I will be going out to site councils, to parent groups. We have our board chats before every board meeting. Those are opportunities for the public to provide input. As we go out, we seek the input from the community of what in the LCAP do you feel needs to be adjusted or changed. Right now, I don't have a lot of input on the complete process. I'm going to look at the template next week for the first time to see what that looks like and what that means for us. I'm anticipating that we just need to document and show how we are eliciting public input. The difficulty is trying to express what our money can be used for. I have people come back and say, well, when are you bringing back the art teacher or the music teacher at Redwood? And my comment, which is not always very happily received, is all of our elementary teachers are art and music teachers. They may not be specialists in it, but they're all art and music teachers. We've never taken away art and music. I know that there's singing and songs and music going on in our classrooms as well as art. Whatever we use with our supplemental and concentration, we have to show that it is targeting our unduplicated count. When I say our unduplicated count, I mean our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, our EL learners, our English language learners, and our foster homeless youth. Okay? So when we get public input, I want people to understand that we want their input. But if you ask me to use supplemental and concentration money to organize a synchronized swimming team at Fort Bragg High School, then I will have to document to you, to our board, to the state, to our county, how that funded by supplemental and concentration is helping our unduplicated count and our students succeed with the metrics that are provided on the California School Dashboard. So we need to ask for public input. We want to ask for public input. So we have the board chats. We try and do two things at once so that there aren't special meetings, because our data clearly shows that folks don't come to other meetings. But if we can go into the Parents Club meetings when parents are there, if we can go into the site council meetings when parents are there, if there is some kind of a community event that's going on, that those are ways to reach out. What I appreciate about the board chat is that the board chat is on the same day as a board meeting. So if someone can't get to the board meeting, but they want to bend a board member's ear, they can come in and bend the ear. And then those two board members can come back and report to the group that night. So there's not a whole lot of time for that to get lost. I will also be going to staff meetings, and then the administrators will be eliciting information from their leadership teams as well.
And service groups. You're going to go to a couple
I
of service
go to
groups?
Rotary on February
February
5th, and I'm working to get on the Seroptimus calendar. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, though.
Any other questions? Comments, concerns? Anything from our audience? Okay. Sounds like we can move forward. You have nobody had any real concerns with changing the wording, so we'll have to see what the other stakeholders say. Okay, Mary, you sure you want to stand?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, she's squirming over here a little bit, so I want to see if she's.
Just have to keep finding a place.
Okay. Alrighty, so we'll keep going on. So we're on to we need to approve all of our SARCs for our 5 school sites. So are these in the same?
They start with Alt Ed.
Okay, so we're good with this order.
Yes.
Okay.
Redwood and cycling through to high school.
All right. So Connie, you ready?
Hi, Connie Belli, Alt Ed. I guess I would just ask if you have any questions. I have 3 SARCs, and they all say the same thing, but it's 3 different schools, so
Can you just tell us and the public any changes, updates, highlights, what would
the biggest change will be for next year. It's our big picture learning, which is a whole, and I've talked about it, I know before, but it's student driven education. So we've started it this year, actually just in January with the first project called Who Am I? And so the kids work on it every Wednesday in their groups, in the cohort groups, and then at the end of the year they'll all have to present some kind of presentation, be it video or song and dance or flip chart, however they want to do it, and it's all based on them, and they are learning how to write essential questions, and they're learning how to do an interview and what's a good interview, what's not a good interview, and really look inside themselves, and the teachers are doing it too, and that's all part of big picture learning, and so that's the first step forward. So that's exciting, and for those of you who saw our boat, the Noyo Center said anytime we want to put something else down there, we can, and the kids our Flockworks artist, Sally Rodriguez, is going to get the kids involved in hopefully one of the alley murals that are going on, and have another spring art show for our kids to display their art again. And so, yeah, and a couple of our kids are actually going down to the Flockworks studio and working with Sally. And their next project's going to be to do Tyvek paintings for each of the classroom doors, based on the kids, based on the adults' favorite colors. So
have they capitalized on their ideas of around be the nice kid?
We got the boat back, so we have to wait, and I think until it's dry enough to put the boat up, and then put the compass rose around it.
No.
Oh, sorry.
The wall decal that we put in.
Oh no, she hasn't done that yet.
Okay,
She's
'cause the
working
kids
on.
wanted
She was
to-
working on my office because she said it needed a whole remake of art. So that's her first step, is doing that.
Okay. And
but
we have 3 paintings at the district
I saw
office.
those today.
Yeah, and the
neat to
kids
see
are
those.
doing more, and they're doing bigger canvases, and Flockworks has donated a whole bunch of new paint and a whole bunch of new canvases for the kids, and so they're experimenting with all different kinds of ways of doing art. So, we've got a core group of kids that are there every time. They do art all day if they could, and one girl actually is probably going to do her project on art. Well, she learned to measure with a tape measure, and stuff. And so for her, that's amazing. So that's our highlights for all 3 schools. Any questions? I guess that's what I'll say now.
The only question I had, I think it says the district has, in the credentialing section, there's 17 without full credentials, but there's one missing. So if you add them all up in the SARCs, we're like 16. So I'm just wondering, Alt Ed says they have 0 without full. So is that accurate? I'm just wondering where the 17 comes from.
I added them all up and they worked.
But
let
maybe,
me go
well,
back and someone
math's not my.
changed.
So anyway, we don't have to look at it at this. Maybe everyone can look at their own, and we could add it up together. Because I have middle school being 5, high school 3, Dana Gray 3, Redwood 5, and 0 at Alt Ed.
Bruce just said 4.
So maybe yours revised?
Maybe that's
Yeah,
makes
maybe
the 17.
I'll recheck those numbers. Yeah, there's one at Alted. That's the problem.
There is one on Alton. Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe that's the missing.
Did you,
I don't know what.
I put in the district numbers. I know the district numbers are
So
correct.
17 is the right number.
So I think
But
that
so
was
you
my
have
mistake.
You're three, do you do all your, you have 3 SARCs.
I have
So
3
there's
SARCs,
only
because
one
I
SARC.
might have put it in Shelter Cove. I'm not sure if
That's where it
I
needs to
put
be.
a
Okay,
one,
so
because
maybe I
it's Shelter
missed-
Cove that has
Okay.
the, without the credential, it's not Noyo or
It's
Lighthouse.
maybe
without
I'm-
the full credential,
so
and it
maybe-
should be one
okay.
at Shelter Cove.
So I could've missed.
I'm hoping I put the one in Shelter Cove, because that's where the non-credentialed teacher is.
And it's not non-credentialed.
Not
full
non-credentialed, sorry.
credentialed.
Not full, he's not non-credentialed. But I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know
I'm
what I
looking.
did.
Okay, so we'll just make sure that that all adds up before we submit to.
Yeah.
It does,
Perfect.
it does
Okay.
it say it shot.
Good.
And
Thank
that
you.
might be why, because it's a Shelter Cove teacher.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anything else?
I knew I looked at that.
I know, and I
Good,
thought
thank
I
you.
was careful about that. Anyway,
Okay, any questions from the
any
public?
questions
Or the audience, I
for
should say.
the audience?
I'm not sure their
Okay,
staff isn't considered public, but the audience.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Okay, and then we go to Redwood.
And first you have to approve it.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So can we have, if there are no more questions, an approval of their SARC?
I move we approve the SARC for alt-ed sites.
I second.
Any discussion?
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Matson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
and Trustee Makala.
Yes.
Now, Ms. Erickson.
Thanks. I'm still Lindy Erickson, principal at Redwood. The SARC that I'm submitting is very similar to the last one. I updated the school contact information, obviously, to reflect my presence there. I did make some changes to the types of services funded. In the previous document, it was just a list of activities, of services, and I gave more of a narrative description of those services. I took out some obsolete information from a couple of the sections and made sure that other things were up to date, particularly with our professional development section, with the implementation of our instructional coaches and the work that they're doing. But that's about it. Do you have questions about the document?
I see a lot of the dollar amounts aren't filled out in that matter for what we're doing here.
Are you talking about on page 9?
I'm talking about, well, it's 21 on the entire package, the way it's in my packet.
On page 21 for Redwood?
It goes through the whole thing.
Oh, let me go back.
Well, and that was another question, because it'll populate when, this is just part of the
Right.
form.
There are certain areas that don't apply to every school site, so they may be blank because of that. I would have to look at what you're.
Let me look.
Yeah, none of the pages are.
Right, and I didn't, because that's in the old days, it seemed like we had the demographics and everything in the report, but this has a header saying that this is stuff that you have to cater or type for your own site.
Manually populate.
So hold on
Exactly.
just a second. Jerry, what you're looking at is their school plan, not the SARC. If you're on page 21 in the full packet, that's the school plan.
No, I'm on item, yeah, let me go back to it here.
3.2?
You're right. Oops.
You okay now?
Hmm?
3.2, no, we're good. He was looking at the school plan.
Yes, I am.
and There were not the complete budgetary items in there.
Oh, look at
We do
that.
the budget through the LCAP, that's why.
We're good.
Mhm.
We're good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, no questions or comments?
So just to clarify, the old reports used to have the suspensions in the SARCs, along with the, like the CASP scores, so will that populate
That's in the
later?
school plan.
Um,
These are the SARCs.
Right, but actually there are old ones from 17 that had that data in it.
This is the new template.
Okay, that's what I'm just wondering, if it doesn't populate, like, once you turn it into the state, it doesn't populate from data that we submit other times of the year. This is the complete form that we'll be able to look on CDE, what we're getting.
This is not, okay,
This will be uploaded to CD.
this will be uploaded to CD, but when you look on your PDF, it says this is not the full template.
Right,
The reason it's not the full template, because we have to submit that to DTS, the document tracking system that
Right.
we use and pay for, and then they put that into the full template that then goes to CDE.
right, so the pieces that are missing from this, what we're, is populated from the service document company we use that we'll be able to see on CDE to show these
Yes.
other details.
Yes, but some things in the SARC are not as identical to other years.
Right.
Because these templates have been changed.
Changed, right. I'm just wondering what it'll end up
So
showing, you know.
Once we submit it to DTS that we are done and they did get approved, then DTS will send us the SARC in its complete template,
Mhm.
and then it goes to CDE and then it pops up on our website. Well, Anna pops it up on our website.
Right.
Because they're required to be up there.
Right, perfect, thank you.
So hopefully nothing's earth-shattering that we didn't know that shows up on the.
No,
Well,
I don't,
it's all information that CDE has already.
that's accurate. Hopefully.
Well,
Hopefully, with the
their
fit.
dashboard
Yeah, the
reporting for-
fit. Hopefully the fit's correct this year.
Okay. All right. If no other questions or comments, can we approve Redwoods?
I move to approve the SARC for Redwood.
I second. Any discussion?
Okay. Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
and Trustee Paoli.
Yes.
Dolphins.
I promised that I will just say the phrase, my name is Rick Kale and I'm principal of Dana Gray Elementary School. Are there any questions?
Would you give us a
The-
changes?
You know, it's primarily the same. You know, there's not any vast changes. The most interesting part for me is the fit report, you know, to see all of the things that we have scurried around, you know, all the plugs that we've had to unplug and replug are very interesting. And it's always interesting that it's the same things again and again. They're different cabinets that are not attached to the wall. The teacher moves it from one side of the room to the other side of the room, and then it's like, anyway. It's basically the same. And Ms. Erickson and I collaborated on the PD part, which is the last part, which I think was new. I don't remember seeing that before, where it lists the number of days, things like that. But other than that, okay.
Any questions for Mr. Kale? Any comments from the audience or questions? Okay.
I move we approve Dana Gray's SARC.
A second?
Any discussion?
Okay. Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
and Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira? Still the principal at the middle school?
I am still the principal, well, I don't know, at Fort Bragg Middle School. Our school accountability report card, just to let you guys know, it hasn't been mentioned, I don't think yet, was approved by our leadership team and by our site council. So I think we all run them through both of those groups just to be sure that we're all on the same page and everybody's on board and agreeing with what we have entered. There's nothing notable that has changed in the last couple of years other than the template.
Bless you.
Any questions?
Just curious, the school facility, there's repair status, and I think you're good in every area, but you have a fair and a poor, and then at the very end, you sum it up to be good. That's just,
So that's the way that they calculate it.
Okay.
We discussed it at site council and at leadership, that it says specifically in the plan, or it's in the fit inspection report, how they determine. And so we fell, I think it's a 90%. If you fall within 90% or higher, And because there was a fair in one section and then the pour is mostly about our blacktop out on the yard, which has been historically always the case.
Thank you.
The only real discrepancy between the middle school's SARC and the elementary SARC is the professional development days. And we've been trying to figure out how to calculate this because we haven't done this before. So Laura did hers by how it was described, which was how many days do you devote to it? Well, she has all of her departments rotating out to work with Kelly Smith. So Kelly Smith works for 10 days, and then it was, then she counted all the ER days as professional development. So her calculation, she followed the letter of the law, and I know that our elementary school principals counted up the hours and didn't do, so that's why you see that discrepancy. And we had actually called the county and said, how do we do this? And there were two different interpretations of it. So if you look at Lura's, hers are specific days, and if you look at the elementaries, it's a conglomeration of hours.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
You said that, 'cause that was gonna be my question, and then Alt-Ed and the high school are like 8 and 10.
Yeah.
You guys are 4 and 5, and you were 39.
Well, and because our early release days, it really is professional development. Our EL coordinator is working with staff on new techniques and strategies. We bring in Steve Hom. I mean, when we are working in our professional learning communities, we're focused on student data. 3 of us are participating in the California Principal Support Network, which is run through UC Davis, and working with Dr. Tom Manny, and it is definitely professional development focusing on student achievement.
So we may look at this, we might want to capture, and this is the hard part, the 10 days with Kelly Smith. It's not 10 days for the whole staff, but it's 10 days. So, we may want to adjust that. But
to
it's
be
here for your
consistent.
approval.
Yeah, just for consistency.
And I'd like to point out it was already approved by both site council and by the leadership team.
And again, it's because when we'd called Aaron Carter, and I sent out a memo to the principals, so I'm just letting you know that's why you see a discrepancy, and I'm just catching it now. So sorry, Laura.
Questions? Thank you.
Okay. Anything from the audience? All right, can we approve the middle
And-
school SARC?
I move to approve the SARC for middle school.
I second.
Any discussion?
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
and Trustee Mattson.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Triplett?
Bruce Triplett, Fort Bragg High School principal. The two major, two changes on the SARC here were the science textbooks. We adopted them, it was after the SARC last year, so we inputted those in there. And our CT pathways changed a little bit this year, so we updated those as well. Since we had a couple of people live in, we changed it into construction, so that reflects that in there as well. But other than that, that's pretty similar to last year.
So under the facility status area, repair status,
Yep.
you and Dana Gray share the same repair status. Every category is good. Dana Gray says that the final is good, and high school says exemplary. So I'm not quite sure
It was a
if it's a
percentage.
different
I think
chart
they,
for elementary and high school.
yeah, I looked at
just
it and it
noticed.
was the percentage in certain categories. That's where it gave us the exemplary one, because it was like 93%. And I guess that collated to exemplary, so.
And Barry Silva's in charge of the FIT reports, and they have to the SARCs have to match what we submit to the state on these FIT reports. So Barry, I believe, actually went to each of your sites.
They sent us
And-
the page, sent us the actual page.
So is it square footage? Is that what altered it to a good to exemplary?
No, I think the difference is, I think that particular box is a calculation that the template does, that it looks at you had this many whatevers, and we equate that to exemplary. And you had this many whatevers, that equates to good. It's
It
how
takes the-
CDE has said to look at them.
And when you look at the fit report, there are numbers that are calculated with it. So a good is a range. So the high school was in the good range, but in the higher good
Good
range.
range.
And then
Okay,
when all
got
those
it.
ranges come together, then you either in the good range, the exemplary range, so it looks a little funky.
Maybe they should give us numbers.
Well,
Yeah. No, not you, but I mean, just, this is the format. It's not a perfect tool.
Any questions? Audience? Okay.
Thank you.
I move to approve the SARC for high school.
I second.
Any discussion?
Okay. Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
and Trustee Makala.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause here to allow our principals to go home. And Mary, if you want to stand?
Thank you.
Okay.
Great job.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you
so
both.
much.
Thank you very much for,
Working together so well.
There is a Dana Gray issue, right?
yes.
So
Well, it's not a, well,
Well-
actually, it's not a Dana Gray
No,
issue. It's a
it's a policy for.
policy discussion that right now affects Dana Gray.
okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are moving on to 3.6, an appropriate use of school facilities. So do you want to give back up or?
Sure, so this came to us last week, correct? Last week. And nice family. I called them because I wasn't sure what to do here. So family came in and wanted to ask to use Dana Gray Multipurpose Room to do a celebration of life for a family member who passed away. And so Wendy, Anna, and I pulled up the board policy and the administrative regulation to see if it's an appropriate use of our school facilities, because it's a private citizen. Typically, since I've been here with you for 3.5 years, we have allowed our facilities to be used for civic use, nonprofit 501c3s, for community events, those types of things. And this is clearly a private use. So we looked at the board policy and we looked at the administrative regulation and we tried to figure out, okay, is this permissible? Well, we couldn't find anything to say specifically that it's not permissible, but we couldn't find anything specifically to say that it was permissible. So there's that little number 10. If you look at number 10 and in the AR, and number 10 in the AR says, and I will read it, other purposes deemed appropriate by the Board of Trustees. So when I called the family, she was incredibly kind. I said, you're lucky. We have a board meeting on Thursday, so I'm going to bring this to the board because I didn't feel that I was in a position to deem this appropriate or inappropriate because the board policy doesn't say private use. The AR doesn't say private use, but we do have this number 10. When I spoke to her, she did say, the reason we chose Dana Gray was because in 2010 we had the celebration of life there for my dad. So they wanted to have the celebration of life here for her mom. So I understand all of that. And what I explained to her was that in my role, I don't feel comfortable looking at a board policy and making an interpretation on it if it's not clear. To me, this is not clear. And the reason I brought this up to you is because if you say this is an appropriate use, a celebration of life, then we will approve the facility use fee and I will call her tonight and say you're in. If you don't approve it as an appropriate use, then we should really look at the board policy and the AR to outline if we are going to allow private use. And the reason I say that is because if we allow this to happen, then we have to be willing to say birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, social events, wedding receptions, all those things, right? And that is totally within your purview. I see things with this going two different ways. I will be honest with you, it makes me nervous to allow private use because it then puts a potential piece of discretion. And I don't want to discriminate. So that makes me nervous. 501c3, civic use, that's very clear. The Seroptimists use it for the quilt show. We do community events in our facilities. We've had the Navy come and use it. Many people weren't happy with that, but you get my point. It's very easy to discern, do we say yes, do we say no? This is the first time since I've been here that it's come up where I don't feel comfortable saying yes or no to this. So, because I don't believe that the board policy has enough specificity for me to say no or yes without being having a personal judgment involved. So this goes to you. Do you see this as number 10, other purposes deemed appropriate by the Board of Trustees?
I see number 2 under restrictions as relevant here. So I don't see it as a acceptable use.
Well, in the Civic Center Act, if you go on the CDE site and look at it, it really, I mean, it's heartbreaking to say no to somebody, especially in something like this, but none of this seems to point toward having individuals rent rooms to.
I just don't see how this is consistent if this is consistent with the school purpose.
And I explained to her that I was doing this. I explained to her that I would call her tonight after the meeting, and I actually brainstormed with her some other possibilities. And she was really wonderful. She said, I get it. School boards change, superintendents change, because when she did this back in 2010, none of you were here. I wasn't sitting here. And I know as a high school principal, when facility use forms came in for private use, I denied them. I had the class, I think of 1968, want to do their reunion there, and we had said no to it because it was for private use. So,
do we have a use fee for this sort of thing?
We have a nonprofit fee and a for-profit fee, and the for-profit is usually for organizations that don't have the nonprofit status, right? Like the ballet. Right? They're not a nonprofit.
They are.
Oh, they are a nonprofit? Oh, okay, well,
Concert isn't
the dance concert.
Dance concert
The-
that's a private,
Is not
it's not.
a 501c3.
Yeah, it's not a 501c3,
Yeah, okay.
it's a private, and they rent cotton.
Wendy, do you remember any of this? You were on the board then, yes?
I don't remember this coming to the board. It was-
I think it
Yeah,
was
it
approved.
That's my guess, that it didn't come to the board.
So we try and be rule followers, and that becomes difficult when it happens for the first time. There are lots of things that are coming up through our office that I have told the public, I don't feel comfortable interpreting the board policy other than how it's written.
Well, and I wonder, several years ago, we had a staff member pass away, and we had a funeral here, and we never thought twice. I'd probably never filled any paperwork out, but one of the things that it's a small community, and so people see that, and they think, well, you've had funerals here before. So, I mean, something that we need to think about going forward, that we need to be cognizant that
So-
even though we're at the schools, we don't.
So there are 2 celebration of lives that happened. One for Jerry Mello in the stadium, and a congressman came to us and asked us to use the stadium. So to me, I see that as a civic use. To me, that was appropriate. The second one, we had a celebration of life in the gym for Vern Piver. Vern Piver was a previous coach. He had done numerous things in our schools. Because of his connection and affiliation with our schools, and because of what he did for the schools, and because the number of people to me, that was a civic, that was a civic use. There was no place in town that was going to be able to hold it, and because he was affiliated with the school, that to me worked. Now, I was the principal at the time, and I, of course, went to superintendent.
I was just saying that
No.
people hearing about that might go.
No,
"Well, you've had
agreed.
funerals."
Agreed. But I would argue that those those were civically minded because of
safety as well, for
Well-
the
Well,
quantity
and
of
the
people.
stadium
the
is-
quantity
percentage of the
people.
community that was impacted.
Right,
Mhm.
but it's a
because we
safety,
did
you
that
can't
at Cotton for-
have them squeeze into the Presbyterian
Right.
church.
And then when Ricky passed, we had his
Mhm.
celebration of life in Cotton, and, you know, but again, how you described it makes sense to me. There is some affiliation impact on the community.
Mhm.
And Cotton to me is a different, that to me is kind of a public,
Well, and these events that you're talking about were open to the public.
Right.
So that makes it a little different
Yes.
too. This is a private event held in a public facility.
And most of the time not during school time, except maybe one.
Right.
Mhm.
So whichever way we go on this, can we do some work on the policy to make that more finite?
I
Good
think
work.
so. I think absolutely.
And I've looked at other school districts, and a lot of them have tailored their policy to how they want to move forward or how they operate. And there's some that go one way and some that go the other way, but it's definitely a policy that schools are using to make their own.
Right,
Makes good sense.
right. Because I agree, I don't really want to get into policing what kind of private events will be happening at schools.
Right.
Because sometimes those private events want to come with alcohol, and I don't want to have to police those kinds of situations.
Anna said board policy.
Right,
yeah,
it
that
is.
specifically says in there, but still.
Right,
you-
that people,
could.
people,
Right.
it- just because it's in the
Right.
policy
Doesn't
doesn't mean
stop
they're
them,
going
right.
to not bring
Right.
their,
And again,
items.
this person was incredibly kind.
right, respectfully
Incredibly
speaking.
kind, very respectful, understood. I get it. You know, you had celebration of life for your dad. You want to have a celebration of life in the same place for your mom. I 100% get it. And, you know, as a human being, I want to be able to say, okay, you know, I get it. You suffered a great loss. At the same time, I don't want to be that person. I don't want us to be that entity that says, well, because you have a better story, we're going to say yes to you. And because yours is just a 5-year-old birthday party, we're going to say no to you. I don't want us to be in that position where we are picking and choosing who we are saying yes and no to. I want to have a very clear policy so that if you meet the requirements, Anna, Lamanda, anybody in the front office can say, okay, I don't need to bring this to Becky's desk. And we sign off on it. You have all the elements, boom. So this one makes me nervous. I don't want to set precedents, even though it may have been set with other people. I don't want to set precedents while I'm sitting in this chair. When I'm gone, do what you want. But I don't want to set precedents right now, so that's why this is on your lap. And whichever way you vote, I'm going to ask that we look at this board policy at the February board meeting with some adjustments, whichever way you vote. If you vote yes, have at it, then I'm going to request that we have a specific section in this policy and an administrative regulation that outlines private use. If you say, no, we don't see this, then I'm going to ask that we add in a specific section in the BP and AR about private use.
Any input from the audience? Okay, any questions or more comments from the board? Okay, so I'll call for a motion.
So if there's no motion, there's no approval, right? We don't have to make a motion to
That's a
deny a
question.
request.
Somebody can make a motion to deny,
Mhm.
and then if
But-
nobody feels that way, then it would die for lack of a second.
Okay.
And then somebody else-
Inaction is not the same thing, or is this? I'll make a motion to deny
Okay.
the request based on the number 2 restriction in the AR, which states any use which is inconsistent with the use of school facilities for school purposes or which interferes with the regular conduct of school or schoolwork shall not be used for any of those activities, and I don't see this as a school purpose.
So this is to deny the facility use application. I second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay,
Trustee Mattson,
No.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
yes. And we move on. We have 2 meetings in February, one on the 6th for budget, and then our regular meeting on February 13th. So can I have an adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Jerry. I second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Kale.
Yes.
It will be with me at every meeting,
Yeah.
in my bag.
Thank you, folks.